Hey, what's up, guys? It's your fitness trainer, Joey, and if you haven't seen it on the weekend, we already had our Tactics Explained video out. Go ahead and check that out, learn a little bit about the tactics. But now we're going to go over the weekend results, what that means for the table, and looking forward to the week, as well as talking about something that interests me this weekend. So, up first, we have the EPL. Big game on the weekend was Tottenham, third place, tied on points with Manchester United, traveling to Manchester United. Tottenham without their center forward Harry Kane ended up losing 1-0 to Manchester United. A Romelu Lukaku goal towards the end, definitely paying off for that huge investment Manchester United put into him over the summer. Obviously, without Harry Kane, Tottenham showed that they were not quite at the level of top four. I feel like if they lose Harry Kane, they might as well sell Dele Alli as well and just start to rebuild from there. Manchester United taking a 1-0 win. Bottom feeders, Crystal Palace getting another point at home over West Ham. They're currently now up to, I think they have 4 points now. So they're starting to climb back. They're starting to get out of the bottom of the cellar. Been doing pretty well. Man City pulling out a close one at West Brom, 3-2, still maintaining a solid lead at the top of the table. Currently still keeping that 5-point gap over United. Liverpool getting a much-needed win at home, 3-0 over Huddersfield. Watford dropping points at home to Stoke City. Wow, getting into the top 4 and then just collapsing from there. Arsenal with a 2-1 win over Swansea at home. And Chelsea going to Bournemouth, taking a 1-0 victory. On Sunday, Brighton and Southampton tied. A decent result for both of them, although I would say Brighton should probably be looking to get all 3 at home. And then Leicester with a 2-0 win over absolutely struggling Everton. Today we have Burnley taking on Newcastle, so that should be another interesting one as well. Burnley are 10th in the table right now, whereas Newcastle are 8th, so again, pretty close matchup there, only separated by 1 point, so this game will shake up the table a little bit more. Sitting at the top with 28 points, you have Manchester City. 23 points is Manchester United. In third is still Tottenham with 20 points. Although they've lost their gap over 4th place significantly with that loss, as Chelsea and Arsenal both made up ground. Both of them tied on 19. But the goal differential still benefiting Chelsea with 8-6. Liverpool climbing back up to 6th place, leapfrogging Watford here, getting 16 points. Watford on 15. Newcastle in 8th place with 14 points. Southampton and Burnley taking up 9th and 10th with 13 points. Leicester City, Brighton, and Huddersfield all holding down 11th, 12th, and 13th in the table with 12 points. Stoke City with an impressive win move up to 14th place with 11 points. West Brom on 15th place with 10 points. West Ham in 16th place with 9 points. Swansea in 17th place with 8 points and a better goal differential than Everton, who are also on 8 points and now in the relegation zone. Firing Ronald Koeman, the team didn't have much of a direction, and now that another loss there. Now they're looking at relegation zone, and if you look at all the people they brought in this summer, it's very, very troubling times for them. Bournemouth in 19th place with 7 points. The Cherries looking to just grab a win anywhere to just jump up in the table and get out of this relegation zone. And Crystal Palace on 20th in the bottom with 4 points. 4 points off from, or 5 points off, sorry, from getting out of the relegation. And unlike the top of the table, 5 points is pretty easy to make up. So those are the results from the EPL this weekend. Let's turn to Spain, where we had a lot of interesting news and things that happened. So Valencia continued their winning ways on keeping 2nd place on the table securely theirs with a 2-1 win over Alaves. Atletico Madrid could not take advantage of this weekend and only tied 1-1 at home to Villarreal. definitely a slip up there. Barcelona go to a tough Bilbao and come away with a 2-0 win. Definitely a back and forth there. Bilbao failing to capitalize on any of their chances. And Sevilla hosting Leganes with a 2-1 win at home. Unfortunate for Leganes. Yesterday, the big results. Malaga finally getting a win at the bottom of the table. Eibar and Levante tying. Getafe taking a 2-1 win over Real Sociedad, and Girona, the Catalan side, winning 2-1 at home over Real Madrid. Today we've got Las Palmas hosting Deportivo and Espanyol hosting Real Betis. So looking at La Liga table, with that win, Malaga jump over Alaves and get out of the bottom. Las Palmas still have to play, and Deportivo still has to play, both of them on 8 and 6 points. Going from the bottom up, we have Alaves with 3 points, Malaga with 4, Las Palmas, who still have a game in hand, on 6 points in 18th place, Eibar in 17th with 8 points, Deportivo with a game in hand still have 8 points in 16th, Espanyol with a game in hand have 10 points in 15th, Atletico Bilbao dropping all the way down to 14th in the table with 11, tied with Celta Vigo, who also have 11 points in 13th. Girona with that win jumping up to 12th place in the table with 12 points. Levante 12 points, as well as Getafe, who hold 10th place. Real Sociedad in 9th with 14th. Real Betis with 16. Leganes dropping down to 7th place, tied with Villarreal in 6th on 17 points. Sevilla starting a slight climb back to the top with 19 points in 5th. Atletico Madrid failing to take advantage of the weekend, still sitting in 4th with 20. Tied with them and just missing out on 1 goal differential with Real Madrid, who also sit with 20 points. Valencia 4 points ahead on that 2nd place with 24, and Barcelona with a 4-point lead over Valencia and an 8-point lead over their rivals Real Madrid. Definitely look like they're running away with that. I want to talk a little bit more about Barcelona and Real Madrid, so stick around later for that, because not enough people talk about them, obviously. Moving to Serie A, you have Juventus Juventus with a huge win on the road over struggling AC Milan side. That's been the understatement of the year for the past couple of years. Milan just absolutely struggling so far in Serie A. No clue how that's going to happen, especially taking, I believe it was Bonucci, the center back from Juventus, going to AC Milan to try and turn it around, and simply has not done that. Juventus have been able to replace him decently well and taking a 2-0 win. Roma with a 1-0 win at home over Bologna. And yesterday's results, we had Napoli beating Sassuolo 3-1. Crotone defeating Fiorentina 2-1 at home. Torino with a 2-1 win over Cagliari. Udinese putting aside that previous result with a 2-1 win over Atalanta. Spal getting a win over Genoa. And today, Verona hosting Inter Milan. So looking at the Serie A table right now, we've got, starting from the bottom, Benevento still in the very bottom with 0 points. Verona with a game in hand, tied with Genoa on 6th. Sassuolo on 8th, Spal on 8, Crotone on 9 with Cagliari. And 13th, you've got Udinese with 12, Bologna in 12th place with 14 points. Chievo Verona is in 11th with 15, tied with Atalanta on points. Torino, AC Milan, and Fiorentina holding down 7th, 8th, and 9th place, respectively, with 16 points. And you have Sampdoria in 6th place with 20 points. Roma in 5th with 24 points. Roma still have a game in hand as well as Sampdoria, and Inter Milan as well with a game in hand on 26 points in 4th. Lazio and Juventus tied with 28 points, 3 points behind the leaders Napoli at 31. So obviously many things can change here. If Roma get another win, as well as Inter Milan, Roma will be within 1 point of both Lazio and Juventus. Inter Milan with a win will put them above both Lazio and Juventus and 2 points away from Napoli. So top of the table is getting a lot slimmer. from Serie A, 1 to 5 seems to be like everything in there, and then 6th place seems to be held down pretty solidly by Sampdoria, Fiorentina, the old powerhouses of Italy, and Fiorentina and Milan still about 4 points away, and Sampdoria still have a game in hand, which is always a chance for some more points to build up that roll there. You also have Torino pushing for that, Atalanta, Chievo, even to some extent Bologna. So it looks like the races right now is 1 through 5 to take the title, potentially get some Champions League places in there, and then 7th through, I want to say 12th right now, going along with some of the relegation battle that always takes place. So turning to France have some interesting results as well. You've got Paris PSG taking on OGC Nice, hosting them with a comfortable 3-0 win. Nice definitely not looking very nice. Bordeaux losing at home 2-0 to Monaco. Monaco keeping pace up front. You've got Dijon with a 1-0 win over Nantes. Strasbourg tying Angers. Montpellier losing at home to Rennes. Guingamp and Amiens with a 1-1 tie. And then Caen taking Troyes over 1-0 on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Lyon with a 2-0 win over Metz. Marseille keeping pace with a 1-0 win over Lille at Lille. And then Saint-Etienne and Toulouse tying 0-0. So what does that look like for the table, which is a lot more interesting than me trying to pronounce French names. So you got Lille and Metz taking up 19th and 20th place. Lille still have a game in hand, sitting on 6 points. Metz sitting on 3 points. Strasbourg dropped back into the relegation zone with 10 points, simply losing out on 1 goal differential to Nice, who are definitely struggling this year on 10 points, and Amiens with 10 points as well. Troyes and Dijon and Rennes taking 13th, 14th, and 15th with 12 points. Angers in 12th with 13 points. Guingamp in 11th with 14 points. Toulouse with Montpellier taking up 10th and 9th place with 15 points. Bordeaux with 16 points in 8th. Caen in 7th place with 18 points. Saint-Etienne with 18 points in 6th. Nantes with 20 points in 5th. With 21 points in 4th is Marseille, keeping up with Lyon, who have 22 points in 3rd. Monaco trying to keep that gap to 4 points, currently in 2nd, and PSG with a 4-point lead up top with 29 points. So only 2 teams with games in hand that have anything to note is Amiens, who are in 16th place with 10 points, have to still play Lille, who are in 19th place. Everything else is up to snuff there. It looks like PSG will not be... They'll be ahead. Prediction will be that they'll be ahead for most of the season, and if they end up winning it, it should be around here. I think Monaco will keep that pace really nicely, and I don't think anyone's really going to be able to catch Monaco in 2nd place. I think Lyon, Marseille, Nantes, and to some extent Saint-Etienne will be fighting for that 3rd and 4th spot. I don't know. I'll have to look up again. I don't know off the top of my head what teams get into Europa League, what teams get into Champions League. I think France send 3, so that 3rd place will be a huge race there, obviously with 22, 21, and 20 going between Lyon, Marseille, and Nantes. And then I don't know if it cuts off at 6th or if it cuts off at 5th, but obviously, Montpellier, Toulouse, Bordeaux, Caen, Saint-Etienne, Nantes, all fighting for that 5th spot as well. So those will be the interesting races for France. Finally, turning to the last big one, we have the Bundesliga here. Mainz and Eintracht Frankfurt share the spoils, 1-1 at Mainz. Saturday, some very interesting results. You have the likes of Wolfsburg, who are still kind of struggling in the table, going to Schalke and getting a 1-1 tie. Very impressive considering Schalke are doing pretty well this season. Bayer Leverkusen winning 2-1 over bottom feeders Köln. Hertha Berlin finally getting a result over another struggling Hamburg SV. Hoffenheim just continuing their slide down the table, losing to Mönchengladbach 3-1. Bayern take a huge step forward with a 2-0 win over Red Bull Leipzig. And Hanover bringing themselves up into the top 4 with a win over Dortmund at home. Definitely a huge hit to Dortmund there. And then yesterday we had FC Augsburg beating relegation battling Werder Bremen, and VfB Stuttgart with a 3-0 win at home over Freiburg. So looking at the Bundesliga table here, FC Köln and Werder Bremen in those relegation spots right there. Köln with only 2 points on the season. Werder Bremen with 5 points. Neither of these teams have managed a win in the Bundesliga. Hamburg in the 16th place, which is actually not a relegation spot. It is a two-legged playoff with the 3rd place of the 2nd Bundesliga sitting on 7 points there. Freiburg just a point out of that position with 8. You got Wolfsburg with 10 points in 14th, Mainz with 11 points in 13th, Stuttgart in 12th place right now with 13 points, as well as Hertha Berlin in 11th with 13 points. Eintracht Frankfurt, Augsburg, and Bayer Leverkusen hold up 8th, 9th, and 10th place with 15 points. Hoffenheim dropping all the way from the top 4 to 7th place with 16 points. Mönchengladbach leapfrogging them with 17 points. Tied with Schalke in 6th and 5th place. Hannover 96 taking 4th place with 18 points with that impressive win over Dortmund. Leipzig still sitting in 3rd with 19 points. Dortmund sitting in 2nd with 20 points. And Bayern start to build their lead at the top of the table with 23 points. Definitely interesting. The Bundesliga does seem like it's a lot more interesting than it was in years previous through 10 games. Obviously, they still have 24 games more to go, so a lot of points up for grabs there. I don't think Dortmund have played Bayern at all. Red Bull Leipzig has had one hit at both Dortmund and Bayern, but they still have to host. Red Bull Leipzig still has to host both Dortmund and Bayern, so that's going to be very interesting games there. So I expect them to keep going through there. Bayern and Dortmund still have to play each other twice, so that's always just a 6-point swing, or sorry, a 12-point swing one way or the other. So you know, it's going to be very interesting. You still have the likes of Schalke and Hanover, as well as Mönchengladbach nipping at the heels. If Hoffenheim can turn things around, that's potential there. And, you know, even though Bayer, like 8th, 9th, and 10th place, you don't think they can really shoot, but they are only 3 points away from Hanover's spot in 4th. You know, Bayer Leverkusen, FC Augsburg, and Eintracht Frankfurt are all 3 points away from nipping at Hanover, which means they can leapfrog Schalke, Mönchengladbach, or Hoffenheim at any time. So Bundesliga is definitely looking interesting this time around. I am definitely interested to see how that will turn out. So let me quickly pause this before I bring up my main topic of the podcast, and then we can go over some of the predictions for Champions League. So one sec. This will be literally a second for you, but it's going to be a little bit longer for me as I pause the recording. Alrighty, so what I wanted to show is the importance of the transfer market and what you need to look for, how you need to rebuild your team. You know, every year teams get older, and it's important to not only replace the old players with some new players, but also strengthen your squad. And what I mean by that is it's not necessarily, you know, going out and spending a huge amount of cash on you know, a huge player who's above your quality to try and bring up those level. That's important as well, but it's also important to bring someone around the same quality as what you have, maybe a little lower quality, of someone who wants to play, because you have a preseason to bring them up to the level that the rest of your team is at, but then that also adds that competition that forces your team to get better. And I want to show that as what Barcelona did and what Real Madrid did. Not only did they do that, but they also brought in players in key positions that would help out. So from Real Madrid's perspective here, you've got you've sold off Burgoy and Fabio Contrao, both left-sided players. Burgoy came back from a loan at Sporting Gijón, and then you sold him off to Alaves. Fabio Contrao went back to Sporting Lisbon. He's only 29, so not necessarily out of the way. The big ones that have actually been lost is, they've lost Pepe, who was one of their solid center backs, so now they only have two in the French dude Raphael Varane and Sergio Ramos. Both of those, that's really kind of their only competition. You also had a potential 23-year-old in Diego Llorente. They sold him off to Real Sociedad. Then some of the other big ones that they let go. You had Mariano Diaz, a young up-and-coming center forward. Maybe he wasn't going to play a lot, but he's only 23. Definitely could use the experience. You sold him to Olympique Lyon for $7.2 million. James Rodriguez, an attacking midfielder who could definitely fill in some of the role offensively. He went on a 2-year loan to Bayern Munich with an option to buy. He's only 26. You lost out on right back Danilo to Man City. And you also sold your backup center forward Alvaro Morata. And that's a big one that I'm going to come back to later. There's a couple other ones, Getafe taking a free transfer as well. But what Real Madrid brought in was not great at all. They had some players returning from loan. Diego Llorente came back, but you sold him right away. You have Jesus Vallejo coming back from Eintracht Frankfurt. Don't know if he's going to get much experience. Borja Moyarol, I don't even know how to pronounce that name. Coming back, Marcos Llorente, Burgoy. You brought up from your second team a right back, but then you also brought in Dani Ceballos from Real Betis, a 20-year-old center midfielder, definitely getting some experience there. And then a left back from Atletico Madrid, you brought in Theo Hernandez for $27 million. So as you can see, they've lost a lot. And the big one that I think is hurting Real Madrid is actually more losing a center back, losing a lot of outside defensive help, and losing a center forward and not really replacing them at all. That's definitely hurt to a massive extent, which is why I think they are going to go out and get Harry Kane. It may be, in January, especially if Zidane's feeling the pressure, they will find a way to fork out as much cash to Tottenham to get Harry Kane, and perhaps Dele Alli on top of that. If Zidane's job is secured, which I think it should be, he won 2 Champions Leagues back-to-back, so I don't see why his job should be in question, even though they are struggling this year. I don't know if he had the cash to go out and buy players or what, but they obviously had a huge change in how everything works. They're also changing their formation. Gareth Bale is still injured, so now they're having to play Ronaldo and Benzema up top in a 4-4-2. That's not how Real Madrid have been playing. You've got the likes of Marcelo just kind of holding that left back position. And because of that, they forced out Burgoy. They forced out Fabio Contrao. James Rodriguez just kind of let go. You got rid of Danilo for some reason. But the big one was Alvaro Morata, which could definitely help out as a center forward. He was the one that could push and could potentially take out Karim Benzema as the center forward. And he has got great experience under his belt, and there's a reason that for $60+ million, Chelsea paid to get Alvaro Morata. You've got Antonio Conte working with Morata at Juventus. Morata was the one who knocked out Real Madrid in the semifinals of the Champions League when Barcelona beat them 3-1. He's gone against Barcelona. He's played at top Champions League level. He's played at top Serie A experience. He's got many Serie A titles to his name. And he definitely helped you guys out last season with winning La Liga and winning Champions League. You can't have one center forward holding on to that. and just losing everything he's going to be playing, or you're going to have to rotate him in, and that clearly affected them and how everything was working there. But the big one that definitely hurts or can be shown as to how Barcelona have jumped so high is looking at who they've gotten rid of and who they've taken in. So, obviously they've gotten some players in and out, loaning out Marlon, Sergi Samper, Munir El Hadid, and Douglas. Douglas is probably the one that I would say they're probably loaning out for a potential buy later on, as he's a 27-year-old right back. Munir and Sergi Samper are both going into La Liga squads, both 22, one is right wing, one is a defensive mid. Obviously, still their positions are kind of up for, not necessarily up for grabs, but they're still kind of there. And then you've got the likes of Marlon, who they just brought in, going on loan to Nice in Ligue 1. Mathieu got sold to Sporting, or left on a free transfer to Sporting Lisbon. You have Jordan Masip going on a free transfer to Real Valladolid in La Liga 2. Christian Tello, a 25-year-old winger, obviously not going to be going out for much, sold for about $5 million to Real Betis. And then, obviously the big one, Neymar, which was over $200 million. So they had a lot of money to spend with that. And the option of losing, they lost Neymar. That should have been a huge loss for them, but they actually managed to hold it pretty well, and they've even changed their formation again to that 4-4-2 that Real Madrid are going for, but they've replaced Neymar with a lot more solid defensive work, which I felt like was their problem before, because last season you saw Barcelona kind of just have more of a direct style, just trying to get it to those front three and have them do something, and now it looks like they've got more of a solid line going through there. With Mathieu going out, that's a center back, an older veteran center back, and you've got Thomas Vermaelen coming right back in from AS Roma, ending his loan, so that they're fine with that. Obviously you have Gerard Deulofeu coming in from Everton. They brought him back. They had a buyback clause from Everton. He's only 23. That fills that right wing role that Neymar could have potentially left. Yeah, they brought in Ousmane Dembele from Borussia Dortmund. Huge player. Definitely underrated. I think even for the 94.5 million, he definitely did a lot of work for Borussia Dortmund. You can see Dortmund absolutely is starting to struggle, even in the year when they should have been doing pretty well and taking advantage of Bayern Munich slipping up early in the season. They still struggled, which shows how much Dembele is costing them. Obviously, he's out with a huge injury right now, but he's only 20 years old. They can definitely develop him. There's nothing there. He brought in Nelson Semedo from Benfica, a 23-year-old right back. Definitely something they've been looking for ever since Dani Alves departed. They've been looking to replace him. I think they've got a pretty solid replacement there. And then the big one that I think a lot of people definitely overlooked was bringing in Paulinho from the Chinese Super League. I was definitely one of those people who was on board, like, why on earth are you bringing in some 29-year-old who went to retire in China and then come back to playing at Barcelona? But I think he has been the big turnaround there. So what you're not seeing there is that gives when Xavi. Okay, so we'll go back to when Xavi left. When Xavi left Barcelona after winning the Champions League over Juventus, Iniesta had to kind of fill that role. Now, Iniesta and Xavi worked very well together, but Xavi was a little bit further back. Iniesta was a little bit more creative, and that held Iniesta back a little bit, I feel. You have Sergio Busquets still holding that defensive mid role, but now Iniesta's kind of getting up in age, but he's never been that kind of player who can hold back and keep it going. I felt like he's a little bit more of, okay, the ball's out of that final part, and now now we can be a little bit more creative in going forward, and this is where Iniesta takes over. So bringing in Paulinho is another guy who they can one, take over some of the defensive responsibilities of Iniesta, but also keep it going. And, you know, maybe it's not the same as Xavi, but you got two guys now with Busquets and Paulinho kind of just holding that defensive responsibility and bringing the ball forward, which allows Iniesta to be a little bit more creative as well. You've also got, you know, Deulofeu. He's not Deulofeu and Dembele coming in. Dembele, once he comes back, I think Barcelona is going to be even more deadly. But Deulofeu, he's not at Neymar level, but they are not so much relying on him to do anything. It just allows Messi and allows Suarez to do a little bit more. But Deulofeu can still fill that outside role. And what I've seen them do actually is now with that. Now that they brought in Semedo, you can put on a natural right back and a natural right wing up there. They still have Jordi Alba, who is fast on the left wing, so they can have him flying through. You have you can put Paulinho on the left, and you can put Iniesta and Busquets in the middle. Iniesta can go forward, Busquets stays on that right defensive, and Paulinho drops in as a left defensive. And that can allow for a lot more creativity. You have Suarez right above him, and you have Messi dropping in to be a little bit more creative. And it's made actually a very good side. And it shows Barcelona are still doing very well in Champions League. I think they're top of their group by very well. I think they've won every game there. They're winning. They're still in the Copa del Rey, which, you know, that's if you got knocked out at this point. But then they're also, you know, 4 points ahead of Valencia. They're 4 points ahead in first place and 8 points ahead over Real Madrid. And when you look at the total expenditures, Barcelona, you know, they brought in a lot of people and they sold some people as well. They made money this transfer window. You know, they've brought in £203.4 million. From what I'm looking at, this is transfer mark, and they sold 10, or they brought 10 players in and sold 8. They brought in £203.4 million and spent $173.25 million. So they still made money this transfer season with everything that happened there. They made about 30 plus million pounds less than what Real Madrid did, but they put it in the right spots. And I feel like that, you know, they sold off the right position if they had to sell one, and they brought back the right players for that. I think Dembele was a little bit of a panic buy, but he's still going to be a great player. I think Paulinho was a diamond in the rough. Deulofeu is someone that a lot of people wrote off after he went to Everton, but, you know, he's good. Everton don't have him anymore, and look at how much they're struggling. So you see a lot of players in there. Semedo coming from Benfica. Benfica are currently struggling. Roma losing Thomas Vermaelen. Who, you know, it probably wasn't that reason that they're in 5th place right now, but there's still a lot going on there. So I just wanted to point this out that when you look at transfers and you look at who's coming in and who's going, don't judge everything by how much people are spending, how much money is coming in. But also, when you're looking at transfer rumors, look at what people are absolutely missing. I think, yes, Barcelona was going for Coutinho in the summer. I don't necessarily think they needed Coutinho this early. I think they could probably wait it off another season or two before he comes in. I would guess he's replacing Andres Iniesta. Does it help out Barcelona? Absolutely. I would love it. Why wouldn't a team want to have Coutinho is the real question. But when you look at Real Madrid and you look at these, you know, Harry Kane is up there for potentially being bid on by Real Madrid. How true is that? How not true is that? Look at what they've done. You know, look at what they're needing. I would say in the summer, if they want, not necessarily in the summer, but in January, if they're still thinking about competing with Barcelona, and if they're still looking to get through and win Champions League, they need to bring in a replacement for Alvaro Morata, which could definitely be Harry Kane. They need to bring in a replacement for Pepe in the center back, and they need to probably bring in another replacement in the attacking midfield role, because they certainly have not gone anywhere near that. And all of the players that they've brought in, you know, they brought in a center midfielder from Real Betis, but they already have good center midfielders. They have Modric, they have Isco. So where is he going to fit in? And they brought in a right back and a left back and they brought in a right back and a left back. The right back came from Castilla, and they brought in a left back from Atletico Madrid. But they already have Marcelo, and they got rid of some left-sided players who have already been on the team. So look for. I would rate that Harry Kane transfer a huge possibility to happen. So now, with all of that rambling out of the way, it is time for the predictions. Remember, if you get more predictions right than me, I will give you a shout out on the next podcast. If you get 95%, so that would be out of the 26 we are picking, that would be about, let me pause this and quickly do some math here. All right, so you need to get 25 out of 26 of these picks correctly in order to appear on the next podcast talking about how great you are. Okay, so first up, Atletico Madrid hosting Karabag. Give me a win for Atletico Madrid. They definitely need a win. You've got Roma hosting Chelsea. Roma tied Chelsea at home. Give me another tie for the Roma-Chelsea game. Celtic hosting a resurging Bayern. Give me a win for Bayern on that one. Olympiacos hosting a red-hot Barcelona. Give me a Barcelona win there, too. All they need is one goal, and Olympiacos is screwed. FC Basel hosting CSK Moscow. Give me a win for Basel. Basel beat Moscow in Moscow. I can't see how they lose this return leg. PSG hosting Anderlecht. Absolutely. Give me a win for PSG. Sporting Lisbon hosting Juventus. Kind of a tricky one, but I am going to go with Juventus. Juventus hosted Sporting and won when Juventus were struggling, and now I feel like they've got their groove back a little bit. Give me a win for Juventus as well. Sporting Lisbon are struggling. Manchester United hosting Benfica. That is a win for Manchester United. Give me them all day. Going to the Wednesday fixtures. Besiktas hosting Monaco. Besiktas beat Monaco in Monaco. Monaco were struggling. They had just lost to Lyon at the time. Give me a tie for this one. Monaco comes in, gets out a tie. Tottenham hosting Real Madrid. Give me a tie for this one. Hugo Lloris stands on his head. Tottenham do pretty well at home. Porto hosting Red Bull Leipzig. Porto are still kind of struggling this year. All Portuguese teams are kind of struggling this year in Champions League. Give me a Red Bull Leipzig win. Dortmund hosting Apoel. Dortmund need a win. Give me a Dortmund win. Shakhtar Donetsk hosting Feyenoord. That is Shakhtar all the way. Liverpool hosting Maribor. Give me a Liverpool win. Sevilla hosting Spartak Moscow. Give me Sevilla with the win. And Man City at Napoli. There is a tie if I've ever seen it. Great game at Man City with a 2-1 win. I think at Napoli it will be just as exciting, but it will be a tie for that one. So give me those two. All right, time to pick 10 games in the Europa League and how they will do. Scrolling down the list on Google, I've got here Lyon with the first one. Give me a win over struggling to relegation battling Everton for sure. That's my first one of these picks. Second one, give me a Copenhagen tie again. They have done nothing but tie all season long in Europa League. Give me another tie there. Villarreal going to Slavia Praha. No, I'm not. I'm gonna pass up on that one. Real Sociedad gets a win over FK Vardar. There's my number 3. Lazio with a win over OGC Nice. There's my number 4. Marseille with a win over Vitoria. There's number 5. Arsenal, give me a win. There's number 6. Bilbao at home. I think they completely turned it around against the Swedish side, Östersund. Give me a win for them. There's number 7. Let me see here. I need 3 more picks to round this bad boy out. Okay. Oh, Ludogorets at home. There we go. There's a number 8. I already picked Sociedad. I should have wrote these down. I need 2 more solid picks here to round this out. Tough picks. Give me an AEK and Milan tie for number 9. And for number 10, you know what? I'm going to go ballsy. Give me a Lokomotiv Moscow win over Sheriff. I've never even heard of them. So, FC Sheriff Tiraspol? Yeah. Give me a Lokomotiv Moscow win. So there are my 10 Europa League picks. Remember, if you can get more right than me, it seems very hard because I am the expert picker with over 50%. Let me know. Also, going into the second leg of all MLS games, which should be coming up on the weekend, we will also have predictions there. If you can get all of those right coming into the second leg, you will also have a chance to appear on the podcast. So thank you for tuning in for this just over 40-minute podcast. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe to see more, and we'll see you guys for the next video. Peace.